All right, joining me now, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. He sits on the Senate Intel Committee. Senator, obviously, you're also a lawyer. Your reaction tonight, I had a chance to read through this diatribe of an indictment, but your thoughts?
Well, Laura, I think your word diatribe is well put. I've only had a chance to skim through it, but it seems like something that you would get from an MSNBC producer for a special on that channel. These are all constitutionally protected activities in which former President Trump engaged, political activities and free speech protected by the First Amendment. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to think he was right. But I don't see how these charges can go forward without a serious constitutional challenge from the former president. I also just want to point out that Jack Smith is an ideological zealot. He charged Bob McDonnell, former governor of Virginia, on similar crimes years ago. He got a conviction, and then he was reversed unanimously at the Supreme Court because his legal theories were so far-fetched. I think it's very curious that Merrick Garland chose that man to pursue the former president. And finally, I want to point out that every time a Republican has won the presidency in this century, the Democrats tried to stop the certification of that victory. Yet none of them face criminal charges over what is obviously First Amendment protected activity.
Speaking of MSNBC, Senator, I need to show you how two former prosecutors from the Southern District of New York described this indictment.
I think it's a masterpiece. There's an elegance to it and a grace to it because of how well it's composed and how it's just jammed with facts.
This indictment, I mean, he's in his Taylor Swift Speak Now era, Jack Smith. This is a speaking indictment.
Senator, this is a speaking indictment. Ooh, what? This is like the same type of spin they tried after the Devin Archer testimony yesterday on a different topic, though.
Yeah, well, on the topic of speaking, Jack Smith also spoke about this indictment. Again, he sounded like one of those MSNBC pundits. He didn't seem like a prosecutor who was pursuing criminal charges on well-established law, but rather on novel legal theories. That's not the way you should be pursuing not only a former president, Laura. We have to remember that Donald Trump is also the leading candidate for the part of the opposition for the party in power now. This is taking us into third world banana republic territory when, again, you have novel legal theories that have been totally untested by a prosecutor who has a history of ideological zealotry in pursuing these political cases. And then he goes out and sounds like an MSNBC pundit, or he sounds like Nancy Pelosi giving a speech. This is all extraordinarily regrettable, and I think it's a very dangerous step that the Biden administration has decided to take.
Now, you mentioned Merrick Garland. Everyone watching tonight has to remember that I know a lot of people out there question Mitch McConnell, but if it were not for Mitch McConnell, Merrick Garland would be on the Supreme Court. Okay, that's terrifying. But he spoke out about this in the last hour. Watch this.
Immediately after the January 6th attack on our democracy, the career men and women of the Justice Department engaged in what has become the largest investigation in our history. Mr. Smith and his team of experienced principal career agents and prosecutors have followed the facts and the law wherever they lead. Any questions about this matter will have to be answered by the filings made in the court.
Senator, he's out bragging tonight. It's the largest investigation in U.S. history. Most of the charges, of course, like trespassing, doors open, people walk in. Some bad actors obviously indicted and charged for much more serious things. But this is the focus of the U.S. government now. This.
Yeah. So, Laura, Merrick Garland and Jack Smith are just leading what I'd say is the most ideologically charged investigation in American history. Now, obviously, we all agree that anyone who committed acts of violence, especially against a law enforcement officer on that day, or committed property crime should be pursued. But they've been throwing the book at grandmas who just happened to be wearing a red MAGA hat and were on the grounds of the United States Capitol. Again, this is the kind of politicized environment that the Department of Justice has put around this investigation now for 2.5 years, you might say that tonight's indictment is just the capstone, indicting not only a man who's the former president, but the president's chief political opponent today on charges of what I think is clearly First Amendment protected activity on novel, creative legal theories that have never been tested in a court of law.
Senator, you and I have talked about how the Biden administration always pretends to care so much about norms and dignity and bringing respect back to the United States, that Joe Biden was going to be the conduit for that. Well, with all your experience in foreign affairs, what do you think other countries, other governments are thinking about our country now with all of this playing out?
I'm sure many of our friends and partners around the world are dismayed as they see a scene that, again, is more reminiscent of a third world banana republic when the party in power is pursuing not just the former leader of the country, but today's chief political opponent of the president. I'm sure a lot of our adversaries, like China or Iran, are very pleased that you see this kind of unprecedented action by an administration against its chief political opponent that is bound to cause more division in the country, cause more distraction in Washington at a time when we need to be confronting our adversaries. Again, you don't have to believe with anything President Trump said or did on January 6th, the days leading up to it. You don't have to believe his allegations of fraud in the election in 2020. But I think anyone should be dismayed that the administration in power is pursuing its chief political opponent on such flimsy, novel, untested legal theories that go right up against the president's First Amendment rights.
Yeah, but he's going to seek a speedy trial. Again, he wants this done lickety split, Senator Cotton, as fast as possible. Why?
Well, obviously, they want it done before the election. That's also why he brought the indictment in Washington, D.C., a city that is about 97% Democratic, and he got a very liberal Obama judge. I can't say it's a great setting for the former president at the trial court. You'd like to think, though, that there'd be a upfront constitutional challenge against these charges that, even if they fail at the district court, would go up to the Court of Appeals, or, as your previous guest said, be settled by the Supreme Court on a case of such magnitude.
How ironic is it, Senator, that the underlying, again, professed concern by the Biden administration is that democracy was under attack? These are the same people who want to pack the court, who want to abolish the Electoral College, and who now are showcasing to the world our country as possessing a system that criminalizes political differences. So how does what they're doing to Trump not hurt the Democratic reputation around the world? Xi's got to be laughing tonight.
Yeah, Laura, I think it's what psychiatrists sometimes call projection, when they always talk about Donald Trump or Republicans shredding our norms. That's exactly what Joe Biden and the Democrats have been doing for the last 2.5 years, in particular with the Department of Justice, turning it in many instances into the enforcement arm of the Democratic Party or the progressive left in America. And tonight's just another worrying example of that. Again, you don't have to agree with anything the president said or did, but you can recognize that it's the same kind of First Amendment protected activities in which Democrats engaged in after every election this century when a Republican was elected president.
Do you have any doubt, Senator, that if Trump went away tomorrow and just decides I'm done with politics, so he's not going to do that, but let's say he did, and another challenger got close to beating Biden, maybe it's DeSantis, do you have any doubt that this Justice Department would seek to prosecute or investigate Governor DeSantis on something he did, perhaps sending the migrants over to California or up to New York, maybe federal kidnapping charges? I mean, do you doubt that this would be used as an enforcement tool for political victory?
No, Laura, I don't think you can rule that out given Merrick Garland's conduct in office, because it's not just Donald Trump. Remember, it's moms and dads protesting at school board meetings, or Catholics going to a Latin mass, or pro-life activists singing hymns outside of abortion clinics. At every turn, this administration has used the Department of Justice as a weapon against conservatives and Republicans while excusing misconduct by the progressive left. Remember, they wouldn't even arrest people who were violating the law by protesting outside Supreme Court justice homes. It took a Democratic hitman showing up from California before they even made an arrest in those cases.
Now, in the Hunter Biden case, of course, the solicitation of bribery done with a wink and a nod, that's no problem. You can get away with that. But, you know, having a different opinion on election results, that's a federal crime, or four federal crimes. Senator, thank you for joining us tonight.